Shall I engrave
Yeah, that's not the worst outcome.
I've an entire vial of a few small runes in
Oh.
the right places could do wonders here.
Dude, no way.
A few small runes, and I've a feeling that if I hammer on this thing's front end, you'll put it to
Damn.
use, I hope. Don't eat the mushrooms.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Okay, that's a huge upgrade for us. Yo, what's going on, guys? Everseen here. So this is going to be my last update video on Bama. Unfortunately, I did die on the second character. I got to level 95. I decided to get greedy and go for the Exarch kill. I really left like Eater and Exarch, the quest versions, for pretty late in the game. I mean, Eater I basically just deleted, but Exarch I unfortunately died to the ball phase. I kind of knew this was going to happen. I didn't really do what I should have. I should have done a lot more defensive play, I guess. Like, I should have ran like Purity of Fire instead of Purity of Elements. I should have ran, you know, the Ruby Flask. I should have ran a couple health flasks. I did take out my Spectres, all that stuff, but I messed up the balls, and one just completely like one-shot me because I actually started out with the debuff on. Thought that I would get through the debuff before I would actually get hit by anything, but anyway, I just got greedy, thought I was better than I was, and I hadn't done those bosses in a little bit, so, you know, I just kind of screwed up. But yeah, so I do like this build, but I think I'm going to pass on it for now. I'm going to go for the Dual Strike Vambi Dexterity, because I think that build is a lot more tanky, it's a lot more scalable, and all I got to do really is farm like a replica Alberons from Heist, which in SSF shouldn't be too bad. I also need to get a Paradoxica too, but yeah, it shouldn't be that bad. But the build looks really good. I've been watching Alkaiser play that, so I think I'm going to give it a shot, kind of chill out, do that for a change. I'm probably going to go back to Bama. I might try the Necromancer version because it looks really fun. But overall, this version is like, even when I died, like I'll show the POB and stuff too. I'm going to make a build guide on this, just kind of like a generalized, more like beginner to medium gear build guide. But yeah, like my gear was trash. Like everything I owned on my guy was completely crap, except for like a couple good pieces of gear that I got from ROG. One graveyard bow, which like wasn't even that great. I just kind of threw corpses together and got like a bow that would give me decent damage. So, but anyway, guys, I hope you enjoy the highlights, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Yeah, that was great for artifacts. Oh, yeah, dude. We got the amulet. Ah, sweet. Way. What? No fucking way, dude. There it is. Oh, there it is. Tier 1, but have to divot to get 20. That's a terrible lightning damage mod. Okay. We'll use it for now. %4 chance. Fire damage. Okay. That's pretty nice. Alright, we'll take both of these.
Bama free you of your anguish and aid this soldier, so that you may help them find their target.
Oh, it's so bad. Ooh. It's actually pretty good for me. Alright guys, so let's jump into POB just real quick. I'm just going to kind of go over my build. I haven't touched anything since I died, whatever, everything's just left as is sort of thing. But yeah, the way POB works for Bama is really unique compared to like a lot of other builds. So if you're trying to figure out your actual DPS, I'm going to kind of go over a few things. One thing I noticed that PoE Ninja does by default is it does this thing in configuration that sets the enemy stats to Guardian Pinnacle Boss. I'm pretty sure it's because like they have damage reduction, so it gives you like your optimal DPS, like what you'll actually do to bosses and stuff. So it says 5.3 mil, but if I turn this off, right, it goes up to 8.6 mil. So when you're mapping and stuff, you'll have like 8.6, but when you're doing bosses, you'll have this. So I normally go off this number. I've seen, you know, other people doing this too, so I kind of just adopted that. But let's go, like, say I don't have any of this stuff done. So normally you don't get the full DPS calc there. So you want to go in your setup, and up near the top, it'll show your full DPS. You're going to want to include this entire 6-link setup in your full DPS. And you'll also have this thing, this count on the side. A lot of people have been saying for Bama, like if you use Conk Effect, you can get about 9 overlaps with Rain of Arrows. I usually just put 8 just to calc, but like if you want to see it 9, you can do that as well. But you know, we're going to include in full DPS, and then we're going to shoot this up to 8. We'll just do 8 just for safe number. And basically that's it for like your skills. There's not really anything else you need to do unless like you use a haste setup like Val Haste. Then you can here, I'll just show you real quick. There's like a option to do like to enable both at once, basically. So you can see enable haste, cool, we've got more damage. Take Val Haste off, you know, we get less damage. So with both of these up, is typically like at a boss room or something, you can use both of them. That's what I used in my setup too. It gives you quite a bit of DPS. As you can see, we're at 5.1 mil. If I go into calcs though, you can go to Spectre and then set your Spectres. I don't know, this doesn't really calculate anything. This is just more to have them in the POB sort of thing. But if you go into configuration too, there's a couple stats in this long list that you need to pay attention to. One is Feeding Frenzy, and Fresh Meat is another. So these two are going to be always checked because we're just always going to get that buff. I mean, Feeding Frenzy, it's like if, you know, you're using the gem in your setup. So in my I think it's Blink Arrow setup, you can see I have Feeding Frenzy linked to it, supported. So anytime Prismatic Clones hits an enemy, I get the Feeding Frenzy buff, which gives just more damage. So you're gonna always want to have that checked. And then Fresh Meat is also, you know, one of our damage links for the main setup. So of course we're gonna have that active, and this scales really well with minion duration. So we get about 4.6 seconds of our clones doing Fresh Meat damage. So I mean, I'll show you right now too, like in the configuration, like if I don't select Fresh Meat, like our DPS, you can see down here, basically halves. So this works really good. And another one you can do based on the specters you use, it really just depends on what you are using. It'll show like do your minions have frenzy and power charges. Right now it's kind of bugged. I don't know why it does this sometimes, but it won't actually show up. But that's another thing that you'll activate, and it'll give you more DPS. Usually it'll say, do your minions have frenzy and power charges? And then you set how many you have. Typically we're going to do like say 1. 1 is like a safe bet, because then we can know you know, like we're constantly resummoning clones, so they might not actually have full frenzy and power charges all the time. It's pretty rare. You might have 1 to 2, so you can kind of gauge based on that DPS. Another thing too on this build is I'm using Mana Forged arrows and Ensnaring Arrow. So Ensnaring Arrow has a really cool like double effect where like it slows a big target that may or may not be chasing you. Like a boss will get hit by this, and then it does, you know, anything else that hits for like a projectile does 21% increased damage. So this works really well if we're looking in the configuration. We can see number of ensnare stacks. So the gem inherently just has 3 maximum 3 snares per enemy. You can see at the bottom there. So if we go in configuration, I mean, even if you just put 1, it still calculates the same amount of damage. But you can see if I take the snare off, I lose about 900,000 DPS. So it does help a bit, and it gives you a little bit of DPS. But there's probably more optimal things to do. But I found for hardcore, like this was a really good setup to have because, you know, it has a double effect. It gives me a little bit more damage on a target, and it just like keeps them away from me, which works really well. I don't know why this Ellie weakness is on. Ignore that. I think that's about it though for that stuff. I mean, number of corpses consumed recently, I just set this to 5 just because that's what actually happens when you cast Desecrate and Spirit Offering at the same time. It's always going to be 5. Have you used minion skill recently? This can be unchecked. I mean, if you're using minion skill, it automatically assumes that you're using a minion skill, so it doesn't, you can see it doesn't change our DPS number at all. So yeah, that's basically it though. Like there's some other things you can do, like if the enemy shocked, like maybe I would have like say 5% shock on an enemy, or maybe even 10 if I'm lucky. But like this build doesn't have shock really built into it. We kind of have to go for other options to get shock, so we can say no. If you're using like say hypothermia in the build, like if you have cold damage, like I had cold damage on my quiver, so I was able to, yeah, not this quiver, the other quiver I was using. I think it was, anyway, I had cold damage somewhere, so hypothermia would theoretically work. And I guess with hatred too, like it works, right? So like the Guardian, basically the Guardian has all your auras, so you get all the elemental damage. One will be hatred, so you're basically chilling enemies anyway, so you can use hypothermia and then you can say, is the enemy chilled? Yep, and then it'll calculate your DPS based on you saying they're chilled. Hypothermia is good. Momentum's good for another 6th link. I settled on the conk effect and Ellie damage with attack skills because it just gave me a lot more damage. But yeah, shocked was 1, chilled was 1, and I think that's it for like any damage things that I'm looking for. I'm fairly new to using like POB and stuff, so if there's anything like I missed, just like let me know. But I think I've watched enough now to know like generally how Bama behaves. Like I'm just going off of basically what people are saying on how the skills stack. And another thing to note too is like Prismatic Clones has a weird wonky like damage calculation where, and this is, I'm quoting Previ because Previ said this in his document or something, that Prismatic Clones, when you calculate it in POB, it actually takes into account all 3 elements. But that's not how the skill behaves. It shoots 1 element at a time. So it goes fire, cold, lightning, but the POB calculates they're shooting all of it at the same time, which is just not realistic. So whenever I'm doing like the full DPS thing, I just turn that on, but I just leave it at 1 because like I just say it's hitting 1, 1, 1 instead of, if I jack this up to 3, you can see my DPS actually gets inflated by like almost 1 million, right? So that's another thing to note when you're calculating your DPS. But yeah, like this build's really good. I mean, I could have made it a lot better. I didn't really have like Exarch or Eater implicits on gear. You know, I could have had a much better bow. It was pretty good. T1 lightning damage. I wanted minion damage with it though, but increased Ellie damage with attack skills works kind of quite the same. But yeah, this could have been so much better. I could have had crit multi on this. My quiver could have been better. I just really wanted the attack speed sort of thing. So all in all, like my gear was just stuff I found off the ground basically, or stuff I got from ROG or whatever, or you know, I got Jinx Juju, which I kind of wanted to take out of the build and go for a rare amulet and then ditch specters entirely. I saw someone running that and thought that was really clever. He was basically just using no specters, but he was using a ton of defensive layers, which was nice, and he was still getting decent damage, it looked like. Yeah, that's about it though for the build. I mean, I have like just a pretty simple bone ring. I basically just wanted the damage. Darkness and Throne is, you know, a couple decent jewels for increased damage, some flat damage. Yeah, like, you know, we're looking at around 5 mil DPS on a Guardian for, you know, like not a lot of crit too. Like I could scale more crit to give myself more damage, and we're not level 100 too. And I've also got some skill points that are not allocated in the best spot. Like I got Chaos Resistance here. Like if I could get these 3 points and shove them somewhere else, I could probably get some more damage, more life out of the build. But yeah, that's basically all I got, guys. I will make a build guide on my build and whatever soon and kind of explain in more detail, but this was kind of TLDR. Not really, but you know, you get the point with this build. I showed kind of the calcs, and TLDR is damage is good, and you know, this build is definitely capable of clearing a lot of content. It's just I'm playing on hardcore, and Exarch is just kind of a boss that I hate doing because I generally like playing regen builds. This build has regen like half of the time, doesn't have regen all the time, so you're taking quite a risk. I mean, obviously I get hit with a ball there and I was down to 200 HP or something, and I didn't regen. So if I had regen plus like pressing a flask, I didn't even do that, it would have been a different story. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and take care. Good luck on your builds.